Good morning. Today we're in Wilmot at Jay Aubertin's shop. Today is March the 16th, about 9:30, and we're going to have a demo on blacksmithing.
All right. I figured I'd just start with lighting the coal forge because that's kind of where it all starts, and it can be a little tricky, and kind of the first thing we got to do is turn on the air and close the air gate so the air doesn't shoot out of here, and start the paper and put the coal in around it and slowly get the coal going. So this is an electric blower. I'm going to preheat the chimney so we hopefully don't get smoked out here. Open the air gate a little bit, give it a little air. And you don't want to put too much coal around. You don't want to suffocate it. It's drafting pretty well. All right, so I figured today.
Relying on the draft that you started.
Yeah.
So you started the draft.
Yeah, I started the draft, and this is just a 12-inch pipe. Just goes about 12 feet up, and there's plenty of draft usually, unless I've got the exhaust fan on or it's weird barometric pressures, and then the whole place fills with smoke. But today, I think we're good. So you can, in here, you can see that the coal is starting to go. I think one of the mistakes that people make is that they'll put the paper in and then they'll just blast the air at it, and it will burn the paper so quickly that the coal doesn't actually get a chance to ignite. And so what we do is we bank this green coal, and some of it is already coke from previous fires, but we bank it around the sides, and that gets the impurities starting to heat up and burn off. Also, it keeps the fire kind of contained. If the fire does start to spread out too much and you want just a small fire, you can take a little bit of water and sprinkle it on the coal, and it'll dampen it down, and it'll help it to not burn. And it also kind of creates a thermal barrier to keep that fire right in there.
Did you load the table up with coal before we got here, or just you keep the coal?
I just leave it there. Yeah, it's been sitting there for like 6 or 8 months.
How much do you go through?
I mean, you go through it pretty readily. A lot of it's about fire management too. And if I did it every day, then I'd probably be really good at fire management, and then I would just use what I need and everything. But I don't, so usually I just let it rip, and to be honest.
Yeah.
So as the coal burns down, the impurities collect at the bottom, and those are called clinkers. And clinkers is pretty much glass and whatever else junk that doesn't burn, that's not it is a solid, not a gas. And so every once in a while, clearing, you got to clear the clinkers out from underneath the table. I'll probably do a handle this is kind of for going in the side of a stove. I'll probably do a handle that has an offset, forged offset, and a loop at the top. I'll probably twist the handle and tapered end. I'll fold it back on itself, and we'll go for a forged weld, which you know, might go and might not. We'll see. So I think what we'll start with is the handle part of it. And I'm going to start with this 5/8 stock right here. And what I'll do is I'll start with putting a small taper on the end, making an offset in the handle, and then pulling it around into a circle, so you can hang it. That's just mild steel. Yeah. There's a lot of talk about wrought iron. You know, that's the just straight iron. It's a really raw material. You can't really get it anymore. You know, I've got a few scraps of it, but everything now is just mild steel. So we want to put the steel in kind of a neutral area of the fire, down too low, and you get all the oxygen. It's putting a lot of scale on the metal, and it'll get it hot, but it'll kind of burn it at the same time. Up too high, you're not going to be in the heat. So you really kind of want to be right in the middle of this fire, and you can make the fire come up to where you need it by packing that green coal down in and kind of doming up this metal on top, or doming up the coal on top.
How long have you been doing this, Jay?
About 10 years now. Yeah.
Where did you train?
Where? A lot of self-taught. I had a mentor down in Warner, Webster. I worked with for a while. He taught me a lot of stuff too. So, but you know, it's a lot of self-taught stuff. Some classes here and there. There it is. Yeah. Find that flat spot. So a coal forge is really good for getting metal hot in a concentrated area versus a propane forge. I mean, a small forge will get a small area, but a larger forge, you know, you could be heating up 8, 12, 18 inches of metal all at the same time, which for some stuff is really good. For this stuff, I can get really hot metal in a controlled area, and I can work on this. This is still cold back here. So I'm going to come and put an offset on the edge of the anvil. That's hot. I'm going to put it over at an angle like this and hammer down. So I think there's a bit of a misconception sometimes that the hammer really matters, and in some ways it does. You have what's called a peen here for drawing metal out, but really the majority of how you're going to work the metal is over the edges of the anvil to break the metal and to draw it out over the horn of the anvil. The horn will help you compress the metal in a certain direction. And when the metal is hot, it's kind of like Play-Doh. If you have a ball of Play-Doh and you're holding it and you put your hand down into it like this, it's going to spread to either side. If you put it down like this, it's going to spread in all different directions. So with blacksmithing, it's really about controlling the direction you want it to spread. Like, just spreading metal is easy. You just hit it, right? And it just like that. But spreading it forward, spreading it outward, and controlling that's really where the technique comes in. So what I'm trying to do is, on the end of this handle, I'm giving the handle an offset, and then I'm going to bring it up to a taper, kind of a short taper, and then I'll curl it back around. So it'll have a little eye hook at the end of it to hang, or to engage with your hand as you're using the tool. So we're almost hot here. So my plan is to bring it over to the anvil and to work it from both sides off this edge of the anvil to create a taper. And the metal's not going to be flat on the anvil, it's going to be raised up to create that pinch point where you have all your force pushing down at an angle to create a taper. All right, so that's a two-sided taper coming down to this point, and it's running fairly parallel right here. So this next heat, what I'm going to do is continue it's drawing out this way and keeping this relatively parallel and keeping this tapered. So I'm going to use the peen of the hammer just to show you guys what this looks like, and hit it this way so that my material is drawn out in that direction. Then I'll come back and with the flat of the hammer and clean it up. Use the peen of the hammer to draw this metal out, and you'll see that I'm starting, let's see, that tip is right in line with the edge of that hardy hole right now. All right, so we've drawn it out about ½ an inch there, and you can see that there's all these little lines in there, but that's squishing that metal out. And we can come back in, it's a little cold now, but we can come back in with the flat of the hammer and clean those up. I'll put another heat on it and clean those up more. All right, one more heat. I'm going to narrow this down a bit, and then we should be able to bring it around into a hoop. right. What's that?
What's that about?
What's that?
Brushing the scale off.
Yep, get the scale off, clean it up. All right, so we've got a pretty refined point there. I've got a small taper going in this direction as well, which will give that a nice look. What I'm gonna do is take this offset piece right here. Right now it looks like this, coming up. I'm gonna bend it over this way a little bit, and then bring it back into itself there. So, I'm gonna start by heating up back here and bending this out a little bit, and then I'll bring this tail over the edge of the anvil and bring it back in. All right, bending that back. And I'm gonna take another heat, we'll round that out in there. What I'd really like to do is get that little tail tucked right into that offset. So, I think I'll take another heat and then I will use some bending tongs and manually just twist that the thicker part right in here around, and then round that out to set right in. Get a bend or a curve just perfect by holding the metal stable on one side and bending around with the other. It's all about concentrating that force. To start out with, I'm going to get most of my heat on that thick part that I want to bend first. All right, it's not bad. So, it needs to be rounded out a little bit more to be better, but tucking the tail right in there, trying to keep this scroll form centered on where that handle is, gives that balance so it's not an offset element, unless that's what you want to go for. You can go, but I'm trying to get nice and in line. So I'll take one more heat, I'll bend this, as a unit out this way to get it more centered in line, and I'll try to round that out a little bit. There. I could be happier with that. Now it's nice and in line. Little different. It's not perfect, but we'll leave it for demonstration purposes for now. I think what we'll do next is we'll put a twist in the handle. I'll probably take the corners off where the handle, hammer the corners down where the handle is going to be, and then I'll put a twist in it. And then we'll move on to tapering the shaft. No, there really is though. All right, just taking down the corners. All right, so these corners are just taken down, so when you're holding it, it doesn't have hot spots in your hand. And then I'm going to get a nice hot heat on this again. I'll bring it over to the vise. I'll clamp this end in the vise, and I will get a bending fork that fits, and I'll twist the handle around. The hotter the metal is, the easier it's going to twist, obviously, right? So, and the trick is not to cut all the way through on the chisel. Yep, and your hammer. Like that, right there. So I kind of messed it up at the beginning because the machine wasn't quite on, fully turned on. So I lost a little bit of heat. So I'll have to take another heat and continue drying that out. But it does a lot faster than by hand. So you'll see plenty of material here. I'll heat this up here. I'll bring this down to a point, and then I will flip it over and make the tine at the end. True New England. All right, so I'm just going to take some off right here. Come on. All right, so we've got a nice tip right here. What we're gonna do next is bend it over the edge of the anvil, back on itself, like that. Clean up inside, get as much scale off as we can. And we're gonna go for a little flux. The flux helps clean the surface of the metal while it's under heat, and it helps remove the scale, any junk that will keep the metal from sticking together. So you get a good clean weld. And you can see it kind of melts right into that. It'll start melting right in, and you'll get a glass. It actually forms glass over the metal. So let me clean this off first. So that's in the welding position right there. And by virtue of how this metal is formed with the corners being rounded off, we've got the metal coming in as opposed to two flat pieces of metal that can trap scale and everything. The metal is kind of bowed like this. So the idea is that when the metal is superheated, it sticks together, and as you forge it, it comes out flat, and it presses all the junk that gets in the way of forging out the sides. And then it's just being patient and bringing the metal kind of slowly up to speed so that it's hot all the way through. That's melting temperature right there. All right, so I'm going to work the point on the end. You get it now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You want to just hold it, Yeah.
All right, so now where I've folded it over, that's welded in there, and then I've drawn it out to a taper. And now what I'll do is I'll get another heat, and I'll get a chisel. I'll put it in the vise this way. I'll get a chisel down in there and open that tine up. Yep. Let's clamp that in there. Should do it. All right.
Very nice.
There it is.
Yeah, very nice.
It should be, yep, nice and cool.
It's warm.
It's warm, but it's not bad, right?
Yeah. This end's nice and cool.
I mean, I buy most of my steel by the length. It's out in the shed out back. But
Who do you buy from?
Cohen Steel
You buy it there.
or North Star, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
another source for that is Choice Metals in Goffstown.
In Goffstown, yeah. Yeah, they have like the harder to find stuff, and actually for the copper pans, I want to see what they have for pricing on copper, because they might be better than getting a McMaster car.
The copper, is that like McMaster car stuff?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Buying it through McMaster car is not the most.
The only thing with that,
It's there the next day.
it's easy.
Yeah, it's easy, right? Yeah.
Yeah, but the thing, you're a business, I'm not. You get morning deliveries, I get afternoon or the next day.
Yeah, right, right. Yeah.
That's irritating sometimes.
A Cole, there's a place in Nottingham or Epping, McKinnon Fuels or something like that. I don't know exactly, but I buy so little of it. But he's got the couple different sizes of, he's got nut coal, pea coal, and another size as well. He's a good guy. Buy the 50-pound bag. And tools, yeah, you can always get used tools if you get the right tools, but tongs, a lot of times people have blacksmith tongs. It's like railroad tongs and stuff like that. Blacksmith Depot is good. If you look up blacksmith tools online, you can get tongs. The good tongs that I have are called Fiery Furnace Forge down south somewhere, and those are really good. But like I said, you don't really need crazy hammers. You can get away with a ball peen hammer and using it correctly over the side of the anvil. But you want a good cross peen, you want a good straight peen hammer. Don't go too heavy. Everyone wants to be Thor and go with the 12-pound hammer, and it's like, yeah, you blow your arm out. And I can do, that's a 2 or 2.5 pound, 2.25 pound hammer that I was using today. But, for the most part, and I'm not saying this is the case all the time, but I can take this little hammer right here and do the same amount of work, a few more blows with it, but it's not blowing your arm out. And it's a nicer swing, and you can whip it more too, because a lot of times, this hammer is more of a dead blow hammer. You're bringing it down, right? This hammer you can really whip at the metal, and you get your force that way. And you're not like, this was my first hammer, because I thought I was big and bad. And it's not even that big a hammer. I don't even know what it is, but after like an hour, it's like, I'm dead. Yeah. So I started just going to lighter and lighter hammers and telling everyone who asked, just get lighter hammers. Because, so these are cross peen because they go across. This is not really a straight peen, but that would be the direction of a straight peen hammer, going in line with the handle. This is another one of my hammers that I like. That's a diagonal peen. So, which is kind of nice, because if you notice while I was drawing out this tang right here, I'm going like this. It's not horrible, but if I have this hammer, then I'm just naturally hitting it, So this is a more natural position, but you have to keep an eye on where that cross peen is landing. Because if I'm off a little bit, all of a sudden it starts wobbling back and forth. It starts wobbling back and forth. I put a big curve in it, stuff like that. So, and with this cross peen, I know that I'm in line with it, because I'm going to hit my forehead if I'm not careful. That sort of thing.
Yeah, don't knock yourself out.
Yeah, right. So, and then what we used here is a flatter. That's a top tool for flattening metal. Here's another flatter. That's a very old flatter. That poor thing. And we've got all sorts of different. These are less hammer and more top tool for chiseling through metal, putting veins in metal.
It's pretty much like anything else. You can never have too many tools.
Yeah, right, right, yeah. This is kind of a cool hack right here. You just get a ball peen and then draw out the end.
Oh wow!
And
really? Okay.
Yeah, and for a punch, and then you don't want to put your handles in too tight with the punches, because they will crack and splinter. So yeah, it's all different different tools for different purposes. And
So getting started, if somebody wanted to get into it, it's like find somebody who's set up and going to teach, or a place where they have classes before you even start.
I would.
Yeah.
I think like we were talking about how there's so many tools on the market right now. You're seeing all these blacksmith setups. You know, $700 for the forge and the anvil and everything. And usually they're not that great, but you kind of see like, oh, someone wanted to get into it. They bought all the things they think they need. And then they're like, oh, this is hard, and, you know, or this hurts, or it's too hot, or whatever, and they get out of it. So, yeah, Sanborn Mills is great. There's a school up in Maine called the New England School of Metalworks. It's awesome. They do knife making classes. They do basic blacksmith classes. They do welding courses, everything. And that's it's a bit of a drive, but they have a place you can stay there and everything too. There's a couple guys around this area who do classes as well, but definitely do a class. I think it's probably the best way to get into it.
Yeah.
Yeah.